we had the opportunity to hear Henriette several months ago, and it was a dynamic presentation that really focused on helping people make sure that they were using their God-given gifts fully. And in addition to that, she is the founder and president of Semper Vita Institute. She's an author, and she has a few of her books here with her today. She's a certified coach in StrengthsFinder, which I think a lot of you are probably familiar with. Many businesses are using that really successfully. And also a certified Myers-Briggs practitioner. And so in her work, she works with individuals, couples, businesses, and really helps them unleash the unique wiring of each person so that the team, the company, the family is working fully together. So we're looking forward to what you have to share.
All right, well, just a disclaimer. When I spoke last, it was a little later in the day. I do a little bit better a little later in the day, so I'll try to be as dynamic as I get this early in the morning. I every time think, why do I say yes to these things? All right, so this is already, you just heard about that, but I do have a crazy name, Henriette Schapelhomen, and I was told early on when, all this internet business started that this was a good thing, because as a writer, I'm thinking, who's going to buy a book? Because you can't ask for me by name, because nobody knows how to say that. But apparently I'm the only one, so that is really cool, actually. And it's really funny. Sometimes you go to the grocery store. I've been married for 34 years this year. And go to the grocery store and people say, so that must have been really hard when you were in kindergarten. I'm thinking 2 names. There used to be like 2 names on the check. I don't pay with the check anymore. So it's like, where do you think this will be my name when I grew up, right? No. So this is all that. Put my strengths up there. So I question, how many of you actually know what your StrengthsFinder results are? Just so that I kind of know if I'm, here you go, that's good. I may quick quiz you later. Myers-Briggs, and I have been doing this for a while. Author, speaker, pastor. We'll get the book thing out of the way. This is my book, Story Lives, which is all really about you have your own story to tell, and you can only tell it. And it's kind of sort of what we're going to be talking about anyway. So we already heard what we're about, what my company is about, and it really is about unleashing your best. And it is so fun. Like, my job is so easy because I get to spend an hour or 2 with people talking about them. And it's so, and everybody really walks away going, this was a really good time, because people love it when you talk about them. And I love it because it's so interesting to me. So, and I do partner with all these different people, and there you go. And part of the reason I usually hate this part, because as a Dutch person, talking about yourself and your background is very, culturally not okay. So if you detect an accent, that's it. The other thing I'm supposed to say, I've been coached, that I come across direct and intense sometimes. So if it bothers you, just know Dutch people are like this. It's my Dutchness. I have tried to become more American after, 35 years here. It's still not working. So, forgive me in advance for being that way. One of the strengths is context. And does anybody here have the strength of context? It's not a common one. But these people need to know where people came from to know whether they even want to listen to them. So just in case there's someone here who has that need, just wanted to give you that background. All right, but now we are going to talk about you. Uniquely you, which is really the exciting thing for me. There's only one you. You're the only one we're ever going to have that's going to be exactly like you, and that's true for each one of us. You're the only you this world will ever have. There's never been anyone like you, and there never again will be anyone like you. Is that not a mind-blowing concept? I mean, for those of us who believe in Jesus, we know that that's what God says. And still we kind of go, yeah, and go on and try to be like everybody else, right? But when you really, really think about it, and StrengthsFinder is one of those that really help you realize that it's true, you think, wow, if I'm the only me that's ever going to be, doesn't that put a little bit of responsibility on us to be the best self we can be? because there's never going to be anyone like you again. And you're the only representation of that aspect of God in the universe ever. How crazy is that? I mean, I don't know. Am I the only one who thinks that it's just completely mind-blowing, you know? So, we are uniquely ourselves because we're fearfully and wonderfully made. That's what Psalm 139:14 says. I praise you, says the psalmist to God. Because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well. And do you pronounce your name Kirit, right? Can I borrow what you shared about 2015? All right. So we're talking about excellence, and Kirit said that she felt that through a video that she saw online that her job this year is to make this world a slightly more beautiful place than it was before she invested in it. So that is part of what God has done. We are this beautiful people that He's made, but that's only going to show up if we actually are who we are instead of like someone else, you know? So to do that, we have to embrace our uniqueness, to concentrate on who we were created to be. And it's funny because most of our lives we end up spending time trying to be like someone else. I don't know in your business how that works, but for instance, from a speaking perspective or a writing perspective, what do you tend to do? You tend to look at how someone else speaks or how someone else writes and think that that's the right way, and then you're trying to emulate that. And you know what? I make a very poor copy of Steve Jobs. Really, he was amazing on stage. I'm never going to be him. But guess what? I'm not supposed to be him. I'm just supposed to be my best self. And if that works, awesome, and in the setting, and if it doesn't, then that's probably not my setting, but it doesn't mean I'm trying to be someone else. So there's this story by about this Rabbi Susha. And he apparently, was a well-known rabbi. And when he was an old man, Susha said, "In the coming world, I'm not going to be asked, why weren't you more like Moses? In the coming world, I'm going to be asked, why weren't you more like Susha?" And I think that is such a cool way to think about it. You're not going to be asked, why, is it Kevin? Kevin, why weren't you more like John? You're just going to be asked, why weren't you more you? I made you for a reason, right? So it's an interesting thought because, again, we tend to spend a lot of time trying to not be ourselves in some kind of crazy way. So one of the things I use, a tool that I use, is the Gallup Strength Finder. This is the book John loaned me. I didn't even bring the book because nowadays you can just go to GallupStrengthFinder.com and you can buy it online. It's cheaper than the book. And you really don't need the book because it's just all the strengths are listed in there and some background. And I'm going to give you the background so you don't need the book. So 10 facts and figures. I love looking at this. 30 years ago, Donald Clifton, that's why it's called the Clifton Strength Finder, Donald Clifton and fellow researchers Gallup were exactly interested about this area of excellence. They wanted to know why some people excelled in what they did and others were just average. What was the difference? What separated those that excelled and those that just treaded water or kept going? So what they did is they interviewed, surveyed, how they did it, 200,000 people at the time. And they came up with 400 aspects that separated the best from everyone else. Now, if you do anything with people or surveys or whatever, 400 is a little much, Nobody wants to answer 400 questions. So what they were able to do is narrow it down into 34 talent themes. And everybody has all 34. Number 34 in your list of talent themes, you have zero potential to develop into a strength. So though you have them all, they're not all your best friend, to think about that. So for me, the thing that I did to say, here's who I am, so that's, for some people that's necessary, that context is my number 34. So it's not, I don't care, just what's going on, So it's just interesting. So for someone, they can't function unless they know. For another person is completely of disinterest, right? So the bad news for you is empathy and harmony is also on my last, page, as well as discipline is number 32, I believe. So there are some things that are missing, but there are other things that are there. So what they did then to figure out how to help people get those figure out the 34 is that they developed a psychometric now called StrengthsFinder. It's really helps you uncover your talent themes. It should have been Theme Finder or Talent Finder. Publisher, if you've ever worked with a publisher, title, they decide the title. Well, the title became StrengthsFinder. So everybody's running around saying, this is my strength. They're not strength until you do something with it. What you're really learning about is your talents. And so you have 20 seconds to answer each question, because they don't want you to think about what you'd like to be. Like you can be in Myers-Briggs assessment, you can take as long as you want, and you can come out however you want. This gives you 20 seconds, so it measures your brain pathways, your natural response, your instinctive response, so that they know what you are going to do. And of course, there's redundancies built in and all that stuff. They have found that it's 98.9% accurate the first time you take it, so they really don't recommend you retake it. So, if you remember the email you used when you first took it, whether that is still a functioning email or not, that's your way back in, and then you can set that up and change your account, of course, nowadays. The second time, it's only 89.5% accurate. The third time, it's in the 70s. So it's really best to just stick with your original results, because I just went back in August and did some more training, and I'm now officially a certified Gallup StrengthsFinder coach, because they changed how they did things. And there were people there in the class that had retaken it. And what people actually did is they took the assessment the first time, didn't like the results, worked hard at being less of the things that they're naturally wired to do. So when they took the assessment next time, of course, what popped up? Other things, right? Because if you spend your whole life going like this, you bet it's not going to show up where it's supposed to. So what the assessment gives you is your top 5. They only give you your top 5 talent themes. You can actually buy all 34 now for $89. Used to be $500. But what they give you for the $10, because when you buy it online it's only $10, is your top 5. And those are the top 5 in order that you have the most potential to develop them into a strength. And they only give you your top 5 because that alone is years of work, if you really want to be your best self. So there's really pointless kind of to start worrying about number 20. And the reason they don't is we live in a society of weakness fixing. So it's like, if I felt this way, which I don't, I should be more empathetic. I need to work on that, when it's all the way like number 26 or 29, or it's way down. Then I wouldn't be focusing on things I'm really naturally wired to be good at. So I'm wasting energy and wasting time. So all that said, your top 5, in the order that it comes out, statistically, you're 1 in 33.5 million people who have your strength in those top 5 in that order. And to run into someone else who has the same top 5 in a random order is about 1 in 300,000. So it's one of those things, so you think 1 in 33.5 million, plus everything else in your life, there really isn't anyone like you, ever. I don't know. As you can tell, that really just baffles me. So then let's look at some definitions. I've kind of thrown them around, and I'm probably mixing and matching as I go. So strength is the ability to deliver a near perfect performance almost every time you use that talent. That's when it's a strength, a near perfect performance almost every time in a given activity. The talent then is a natural way of thinking, feeling, or behaving. It's just your filter, your approach, how you approach life. Can I borrow your story, John? Mm-hmm. So apparently, Pat confirms that John looks at nature and gets life lessons from that. So that's his way that he observes the world. That is part of his talents. And other people might just blow past it and not see it. So it's just how you view things. Skills then are the ability to perform the steps. That's just practicing. And knowledge is what you know. So first step, what I end up doing is helping people to understand what it means, what their talent themes mean, so that they know how to practice for it to become a strength in their life. Does that make sense? So everybody has a talent. So again, talent is a naturally recurring pattern of thought, feeling, and behavior that can be productively applied. This does really get back to excellence. When you develop a talent into a strength, it is excellence, because you are now productively applying it. It's not academic knowledge. This isn't just like, I took StrengthsFinder once and it was interesting and I don't remember what they are. Yeah, it's on my shelf somewhere. That is not productively applying them, just saying. That's more like, and that's the shame, right? That's what happens with assessments. Because we don't invest in them, we don't like meet with someone like me or whatever, or study online or whatever you do to say, aha, this is what it means, this is what you do with it, there's a purpose to this thing. Then it just becomes just one of those things you did once upon a time, and it really doesn't change your life. 2005 is when I first learned about this. 2005 is when I took StrengthsFinder the first and only time. 2005, I discovered that it was okay to be me. In fact, I'm supposed to be me, and it changed my life. But it was part of something that was brought to our church, and they invested in helping us to understand it. They had us work with coach groups. It really was this, you couldn't just take the assessment, go, oh yeah, that's interesting, that describes me, and put it away. There was a whole weekend of investing in it, and it was life-changing for me. It was funny because I was actually in the group of coaches that they were preparing ahead of time, and when the guy described my 5 talent themes, there was like an audible gasp of the other people that was like, oh, it's like, oh, that's why she's like that, but it was like this, it wasn't just permission given to me, it was permission given to everybody else. Like, it was the first time in my life I could stop trying not to be so much like myself. Because I'd run into these reactions from people, so I tried to tone me down. But it doesn't work real well. Then it comes out in other ways, more unruly, right? Kind of Cheerios and milk. Ever tried to keep all of them down? What happens? Right? They pop up even more crazy. So I think when you try to keep down yourself, it comes out in a way that you really didn't intend. Could splash on you or something, or someone else. That would be even worse. So examples of talent then include effortlessly and instinctively starting conversations. Like for some of us, that's so normal. You think, well, everybody can do that. That's kind of the clue to talent when you think, well, that's no big deal. Everybody can do that. But I promise you, when you go talk to everybody, they're like, I don't want to do that ever, Thinking in an orderly or timely manner. Well, I already confessed that discipline was number 32, so you kind of know that the timely manner for sure would not be in my natural talent, right? Being able to easily influence others. Seeing patterns in data. That's the analytical strength probably. Consistently having a positive outlook on life. I mean, some of these things are just like breathing to some people, and for other people that would be like the hardest work you can imagine. But that's how you know. All right, so there's 4 domains of team strength. They now have, this is different order than they used to do them. So they now come in these 4: executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And this really does, again, apply to excellence in business. Because if most of your talent themes, and these are the ones that they are: achiever, arranger, belief, consistency, deliberative, discipline, focus, responsibility, and restorative, are the ones that they are filing and executing, which is people with these themes know how to make things happen, right? And then there's activator, command, communication, competition, maximizer, self-assurance, significance, and woo, and those are the influencing themes. Then there is adaptability, connectedness, developer, empathy, I mentioned that already, harmony, includer, individualization, positivity, and relator, and those are all about relationship building. And then strategic thinking, analytical, context, futuristic, ideation, input, intellectual learner, and strategic. So those are the 34, and they fall in those things. So if you're mostly in the strategic thinking box, right, and you've spent your life trying to be more relational or more influencing, it's probably really exhausting and draining, and you probably aren't ever going to be natural looking at it. It's better to then accept that reality and partner with someone to whom that comes naturally, because probably they don't have a ton of strategic thinking. So it makes, it's again, like, Jesus tells us that we are the body as Christians. Well, each body part has a role, right? So this is kind of like that. It's silly to ask your hand to do footwork and vice versa. So that's kind of the idea. All right, so let's get to the. What happened? Did I change them around? Oh, that's. I apparently don't know how to do order on a sheet. So this is the purpose then, to name it. So first you figure out, what are my talent themes? What are my top 5? Because it's pointless. Again, this is interesting, but if you haven't done Strength Finder, you kind of go, okay, yeah, it's an interesting, what you're talking about, maybe, but I don't know what it means for me. So the first thing is to figure it out, so you name it, and then you claim it, saying, yes, that really is me. Because it's interesting when I meet with people, usually at least one strength, they're like, I don't want that one. Well, that's nice, but it is still you. So because it's something that probably happened where someone made you feel bad, or you were told to be less that way. That's kind of what happened to me. And so I didn't learn to realize it was my best self. I tried to be less that way because the people around me were not that way. And especially, again, in Dutch culture, you're not supposed to stand out or want to be the center of attention. And I don't necessarily want to be the center of attention, but I'm very comfortable in that spot. But culturally, you're told the whole time to just don't stand out, act like everyone else. So if your natural wiring is not to do that, you're constantly hitting up against something. And no one is saying, yeah, be you. They're like, be like everybody, just be normal. That's strange enough. There's truly saying in Dutch that says, if you just act normal, you're acting strange enough. So I mean, we're really not encouraged to stand out and be individuals. We're encouraged to be like kind of even community. And that's probably necessary when you live in a country that's this big with 15 million people. But it's interesting when we're all unique, that really changes the thing a lot. So claiming it is a big deal. I once worked with someone who had restorative as one of their top 5. And restorative is all about seeing the broken thing, not really noticing everything else, but seeing what's broken for the purpose of restoring it to its original state. So it's a really positive thing, except these people can sometimes seem negative because they don't tell you, oh, everything is good except for this thing. They're saying that's broken. So sometimes it's like all you ever talk about or all you ever see is the bad thing. So this guy had a very bad experience with a business partner. And he had decided, before he even knew what it was, to never be that way again. And so when we were talking, he just didn't like restorative. He didn't want restorative. He wasn't claiming it. And we talked about it. And I said, what happened? Where? And we talked about that experience. And this guy went from, I don't want it, to, starting to embrace it. And once he started embracing and realized there was a real purpose for having it, it changed his life. So it's just so cool when that can happen. Because if we spend our life because someone else told us it's not okay, we can be really pretty miserable. And it's kind of like trying to run with one leg tied, that doesn't work super well. And then aiming it. So the claiming it is nice. Okay, fine. I talked a long time about you need to own your strength. But then what? It's for the purpose of aiming it. Because the way you do that thing, you're it. And so you do it uniquely. I mean, this is happening because John is wired the way he is. And he's doing it well. So that is what's cool about it. So it's for the purpose of being excellent. So we can deliver excellence in business and in life. Anybody heard of a guy called Russell Wilson? Yeah?
He's right here.
Okay. If you've ever heard him talk, or even on the commercials, right? Luck or good things don't just happen, you work toward it. Whenever I see him, I always think, I wonder what his strengths are. I mean, this is kind of now the bad part of me. I can't look at anything without going, I wonder. So I see in him focus. I see in him competition. I see in him, achiever, possibly. You can't know. Because a combination of strength can look like another strength. But this person is definitely investing his best self and working each day to become better, right? Would he have been in the spot that he's in if he had gone the baseball route? Because he could do baseball. But this was his area of excellence. Steve Jobs, heard of him? Besides that I mentioned him. He left Apple because he was done with it, right? What happened to Apple at that point? Steve Jobs comes back, what happens to Apple again? Because he could only do that unique thing, and he did it so well. And that's what happens when you start focusing these talents in your area. it can be transformative, not just for yourself, but for what you're meant to focus on. So because no one can do exactly what you can do. So how do you turn this talent that we've talked about into excellent? It requires investment. Knowing it first. I mean, this is just academic information if you don't even know what your talents are, your strengths are, and then investing in it. You practice and you get more and more information. Even after, this year, 10 years, I'm still learning. When I went back to training and I realized that activator and communication means that I actually have to say it, let other people input, and then I actually really know what I meant to say. I've always wondered about that. It's like, well, it's because you have activator and communication. Oh, so you're still always learning. It's like a bottomless opportunity of discovery. It's very exciting. So, StrengthsFinder, doing the assessment, does not give you the talents. Those are there now. All of you have the talents already. You just don't know what they are yet. And when we don't know what they are, or we haven't yet developed them, they oftentimes show up as a raw talent. It's uninformed, it's inexperienced, it's oftentimes self-oriented, and often unproductive. Because how do you invest something that you don't know you have? If you happen to have an extra $10,000 in your bank, but you don't know, are you going to be able to invest it well? No, because you don't know you have it. Same with this. If you have amazing talents, but if you don't know you have them, how can you productively apply them and become excellent at it? A mature talent, then, is a talent that's well-informed, practiced, other-focused, and highly productive. That's what's so interesting. When you first learn them, you really are focusing on yourself. What does this mean to me? Well, who am I? And all that. And that's a good place to start. But if you stay there, it could be obnoxious, right? But if you then turn it around and bring it to your community, to your family, to your business, it can grow into excellence. So one of the strengths is empathy. And empathy, raw, is like these people need everybody to be okay, or get in everybody comes and tells them their woes, but then they feel the need to fix it. It's an unending issue. It never happens. These people feel overwhelmed because everybody seeks them out because, people intuitively they know how they feel, and so on and so forth. And people with empathy can become these really not happy people as a result. But empathy, if you grow into it and productively applied, now you bring empathy. Like, I know what I can appreciate what you're going through and be there, but to give you the tools to go do something with it, or feel like you were heard, but not taking it on. So it's one of those ways.
If the Seahawks lose tomorrow, who's got empathy?
I think it'll take more than empathy, I'm sure.
We'll hand out some antidepressants that are natural.
I like that. That's good.
So I think Guni does not have empathy, but he does have strategic. I can solve your problem. I don't care about your problem, but I can solve your problem. So people who focus on using their strength, this is a Gallup slide. That's why the Gallup slides look different. They're 3 times more likely to report having an excellent quality of life. Who would like that? Would you like to be able to say that? They're 6 times as likely to be engaged in their jobs. So if you have people working for you, it's a good idea for them to understand talents, because engaged employees are more productive, I'm thinking. Right? And for you, if you have to spend all that time there, isn't it better to like what you're doing? All right. So what's the point of all this? It is to know yourself, live your short story, and share your brilliance. A friend of mine who loves StrengthsFinder also calls it that it's your unique brilliance, the opportunity for your unique brilliance. And I love that. So how do we grow into our brilliance? Well, typically in the world, and that's the other reason they don't give you the other 29, is that we live in a society of weakness fixing. Have you ever had a job review? Has anybody ever been reviewed at work? What is most of the time spent on? On the things you naturally do well or the areas of opportunity? Isn't that the nice, word for saying this is what you are lousy at, you should do something about? So we live in a society of weakness fixing, but if you focus on weaknesses, it tends to be damage control. But if we focus on strength, it's like finding and traveling on superhighways. And that is pretty cool. And it is very interesting. The reason we minimize oftentimes using our talents is because it comes so easy that we feel like it's meaningless, and because we think everybody can do it and it's not hard work, so we kind of dismiss it. But the whole point of the talents is it feels like a hot knife through butter, and that's so wonderful. You end up getting paid for something that you love and comes natural to you. That's pretty exciting. At least I think that's exciting. All right. So, last slide. Share your brilliance. For personal satisfaction, do it for you because 3 times more likely to enjoy work, right? But also for community contribution. When you bring your real self, it is amazing for you, but it's more amazing for the people around you because you bring that thing that only you can bring and nobody else can bring. And so it's like an athlete running a race. They train so they can deliver a great performance. I'm sure we'd like to see that tomorrow, right? We don't want the Seahawks to have tried to play baseball or basketball all week and then try to perform on Sunday. We want them to focus on what's good. The final thought about that is you probably have all heard of King David and King Saul in the Bible, and there's a story where there's a big giant called Goliath, and nobody dares to take him on. And when David says, I'll do it, even though he's just a shepherd boy, what is Saul's solution for him? Whose armor? Saul's armor. Be me and go fight him. And David tries that, and he can't even move, because apparently I think Saul might have been. We know, I think, that he's taller and stuff, so can you imagine? And how heavy that would be. But when David went as David, 5 stones and a sling, he was able to kill the giant. When he was trying to be Saul, he couldn't even move. And so my encouragement is, if you've been trying to do it in Saul's armor, find your stones, find your sling, or whatever version of you that you're supposed to be, so you can bring excellence for your own life and for the people around you. Thank you.